Humanity abandoned him, but he still chose to save them. The secret behind the blood snow cabin. We begin in white. Not the clean, serene kind of white you might see in toothpaste commercials or wedding gowns. No, this white is heavy, suffocating. It howls, it slams against the skin with the force of memory and ice. The planet Borealis 6 has no compassion. Its storms chew through steel. Its silence is not peaceful, it's the silence of being forgotten. And somewhere in that vast cruelty, two figures stumble through the blizzard, a woman not of this earth and a boy whose eyes do not meet hers. Seren clutches her child to her chest, though her arms ache, and the flesh at her joints is going numb. Leo doesn't cry. He hasn't cried in years, not since the treatments, not since the electrodes. Each step feels like walking through glue laced with razors. Her vision blurs. Her internal temperature monitor blinks a crimson warning in the corner of her vision, and even the subdermal heat patch she'd grafted into her thigh last week is failing. She presses her lips to Leo's forehead. It's cold, he's slipping. She's slipping. Then a sound. Not the wind, not the mechs. Something closer. A rhythmic crunch. Boots. A tall figure in a fur-lined parka appears like a mirage through the white veil. Face obscured by a frost-crusted mask, goggles reflecting dull red light. A rifle slung over one shoulder muzzle, frosted like an old ghost. No words. He approaches with slow, measured steps. Seren tries to lift Leo higher. Her knees buckle. She whispers in her native tongue, "Not yet, please." Her body collapses sideways. She expects cold. Instead, warmth wraps around her shoulders. Arms not mechanical, not surgical human arms. She wants to scream, but her voice is gone. The stranger lifts Leo first, cradles him with the care of a father who's done this 1,000 times. Then he hoists Seren up like spare luggage. She tries to resist. Can't. Blackness begins to press into the edges of her vision. Why, she rasps. He doesn't answer. They move through snow. The wind rages on. But for a moment beneath that storm, there's a quiet space where survival hums in human rhythm. The cabin appears through the flurry, low wooden beams, crude solar arrays buried under ice, and smoke curling gently from a bent chimney. Milo Varn doesn't speak as he kicks the door open, doesn't flinch when Seren convulses once in his arms. He lays her near the hearth and tears the thermal blanket off the couch. Then he sets the boy gently beside her, positions him closest to the fire. Only then does he sit, across the room, watching, listening. There's something about this man that doesn't belong here. Not the way he moves, not the way his gloved fingers rest near the rifle propped against the wall. Not the way he breathes like someone who's been waiting for this. And the fire crackles. You won't be able to stop being curious, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Now then, let's stay a while inside the blood snow cabin. The room smells of smoke and aged wood. The floor creaks with every shift of weight. Seren's hands tremble as she pulls the blanket tighter around Leo. Her son still doesn't respond, but she notices something odd. He's warmer now, not just because of the fire, but because of him. Milo, the man who saved them. He sits near the corner, motionless, a steaming mug untouched by his side. Goggles off, but the hood is still drawn low. His eyes don't rest on Seren. They rest on Leo. Not cruelly, not suspiciously, just watching. As if he recognizes something no one else does. As if he knows. Seren struggles upright, her muscles twitching from the thaw. "You're human," she whispers. He doesn't respond. She forces herself to sit straighter, shielding her son. "Why did you help us?" He glances toward the door, then back to her. His voice is quiet gravel. "Because you were about to die." That's it. No other explanation. Seren studies his clothes, military-cut underlayers patched by hand. Weapon near reach. Data tablet flipped face down on a nearby table. This isn't just some off-grid hermit. And Leo, still silent, reaches a single hand toward Milo. Not to touch, not quite. Just open. Milo doesn't move. But in the glow of the fire, for the first time since they fled, Seren sees her son's brow furrow. Just a flicker. Not confusion, not pain. Recognition. A deep chill runs through her, colder than the storm ever was. Because Leo has never done that. Not for anyone, not even for her. The fire snaps. A knot of pitch pops and spits a shard of ember onto the floor. Milo leans forward, pinches it out with 2 fingers, and tosses it back into the hearth without a word. Seren sits across from him on the threadbare rug, Leo tucked into her side, wrapped like a cocoon in Milo's only emergency thermal wrap. He hasn't tried to reclaim it. He hasn't said much at all. She studies the walls, wooden slats reinforced with welded polyglass panels. Every surface was cluttered but organized. Tools, wire, a soldering station cobbled together from human and non-human parts. Something about the place feels halfway abandoned, halfway loved. "Is this your cabin?" she finally asks. "No." Milo pokes at the fire with a bent rod. "It's yours now." She frowns. "I didn't ask for." He cuts her off with a glance. Not cruel, just final. Not the kind of place that responds well to guests. But he didn't scream when I picked him up. Seren tightens her grip on Leo. He doesn't scream at all. Milo nods. Still, he didn't flinch. It's the most he's said so far. His voice carries that tone, the one that comes from someone who's measured survival in decimal points in days since betrayal. Leo stirs, just slightly, then stills again. Seren breaks the silence almost guiltily. "You live alone?" Milo gestures vaguely around the cabin. Place is full of ghosts. He stands stiffly and limps to the counter. She notices it now, a synthetic knee-outdated model. Probably self-installed. He sets a bowl of something steaming in front of her. She stares at it. "It's soup." Milo snorts. If you stretch the word, she tries it anyway. It tastes like freeze-dried regret and synthetic onion. But it's warm, and that's more than she's had in days. Across the room, Milo finally sits his back against a wall, bracketed with old human military insignia. None of them recent. None of them were proudly displayed. "You've been here a long time," Seren murmurs. "I've been nowhere for a long time." It's then that she sees the photograph buried behind rusted dog tags. A team of humans in tactical gear grinning beside a dropship. One of them, younger, less worn, stands at the center with a smirk that doesn't belong to this frozen world. Him. Milo. She lets the silence hang like icicles too heavy to fall. "You're not just a hunter. I'm not just a lot of things." They lock eyes, and in that moment she realizes something dangerous. He's not afraid of her. Not even curious, really. Just measuring her. Not for threat, for weight, as if trying to decide how much more burden he can afford to carry. Leo stirs again. This time he looks toward Milo, not his mother, and raises 1 finger. A slow point. A soft breath leaves his mouth. Milo doesn't move, but his gaze shifts to meet the child's. Seren watches her son in disbelief. "Leo, are you?" Milo doesn't wait. He moves quiet, efficient, checks Leo's eyes, takes a small flashlight from the table, scans the pupils. No response. "His neural cortex is overclocked," Milo mutters. Serene's breath catches. "How would you know that I helped write the diagnostics?" She stares at him. "That's military-grade neurology. Off limits to civilians." He smirks faintly, tapping the side of his head. "I'm not very good at staying in bounds." That explains nothing. And everything. She leans in. "You worked on cognitive warfare, didn't you?" Milo says nothing, but the fire crackles like a confirmation. Seren shifts uneasily. "You know what they did to my people. How they sterilized us through emotion suppression fields." "I know your tech," Milo says. "We dissected it." There's no hatred in his tone, but there is knowledge. And that's worse. Leo's hand twitches again. His head lolls sideways toward Milo. And then suddenly, impossibly, he laughs. Just once. A single bubbling breath of mirth, like a hiccup coated in surprise. Seren freezes. Her pulse spikes. Milo watches the boy for a long moment, then looks up at her. Does that happen often? Seren's eyes are wide. He hasn't laughed since the modification failed. 3 years ago. Milo hums thoughtfully. Maybe your boy's not broken. Maybe he's selective. She swallows hard. He never even looked at anyone. Until you. Milo finally sets his mug down. That's not about me. That's about what they erased from him, and what you still haven't accepted. He leans forward. You're not the reason he's silent. You're just the last piece of a system that forgot what emotion was for. The words hit like a slap. She straightens. I designed the cognitive filters to protect people, to prevent war. Milo shrugs. Yeah, how'd that work out? Outside, a gust of wind slams into the side of the cabin. The boards creak. Inside, the fire sputters, then flares up again. Saren speaks more softly now. I didn't mean for it to become this. Milo's face darkens. No one ever means for the apocalypse. They just optimize it. They sit in silence, each with their own ghosts. Then Leo moves. He reaches again. This time his hand touches Milo's knee, and for a flicker of a moment, barely there. Milo smiles. It's not big. I'm not proud. It's the kind of smile you wear when something inside you hurts a little less. Then, like it never happened, Milo stands and grabs his rifle. If he sinks with me, they'll be coming. Seren frowns. You mean they can track it? Milo's eyes narrow. No, but they'll know something's gone wrong. And somewhere far away in the deep blue of night, something metallic stirs. A signal pings into the void, deviation detected, and the hunters begin to move. The wind outside had turned ragged, ripping at the edges of the cabin like it resented the warmth inside. The kind of wind that didn't blow around things, but through them. And yet within those thin wooden walls, a different kind of chill had settled. Leo had fallen asleep. Not a twitch, not a murmur. Just his small chest rising, falling in steady rhythm beside the fire. His fingers curled loosely into the edge of Milo's discarded scarf. Seren hadn't moved in 20 minutes. Not because she was tired, though she was, but because she couldn't stop watching the way her son had gravitated toward this man. Milo, for his part, had resumed his quiet post by the table, running diagnostics on a field jammer that looked like it had been cobbled together from a coffee pot and a pulse grenade. You're not going to ask why, Seren said finally. Milo didn't look up. Why what? Why does he only respond to you? He set down the tool. I already know why. Seren blinked. You do. Milo leaned back in his chair. You were the designer. You understand the code, right? Yes. Then think of him like a damaged relay system. One signal path burned out, but another still viable if unorthodox. Seren frowned. You're saying he's rerouting his consciousness? I'm saying he's choosing the only port he can still trust, and it's not biological. She looked at her son, his face soft now, cheeks tinged pink from the fire. But I'm his mother. Milo's voice was quieter now. Sometimes that's not enough. It stung more than she expected. But it was true. She'd been the one who permitted the first treatments, who approved the emotional dampening sequence because it fit the model. And now here he was, rewiring himself around a stranger. An Earth-born stranger. She whispered, he shouldn't be able to synchronize with you. Milo gave a half shrug. And yet, I mean genetically. Your species doesn't have compatible neurosignature encoding. Not unless, she trailed off. Milo didn't help her finish the sentence. Instead, he pulled a metal casing from his pocket and tossed it onto the table. It skidded, spinning once before settling, lid partially cracked open. Seren leaned forward. Inside lay a slim disc, dark gray and etched with deep scoring. She recognized it instantly. You wore a neural bridge implant, she said flatly. Milo nodded. Operation Silent Mirror. Back when Earth still thought psychological warfare could be humane. Her breath caught. That project was banned. So was emotion sterilization, he replied coolly. Touché. Seren picked up the casing, turning it in her hands. This model interfaces with alien consciousness. Milo nodded again. Didn't always work. Sometimes it gives people seizures, or hallucinations, or, he gestured vaguely to himself. This, she chuckled despite herself. You think this is a better version? He smiled faintly. No. But I stopped trying to fix it. Silence again. The fire crackled. Leo twitched slightly in his sleep, then let out a small whimper, like a wire shorting somewhere deep in his brain. Seren moved to comfort him, but before she could reach out, Milo was already beside the boy, kneeling. One hand hovered near Leo's forehead, not touching, just present. Leo settled instantly. Seren's shoulders slumped. He doesn't need sedation, Milo murmured. He needs resonance. You talk like a technician. He shook his head. I talk like someone who's been broken the same way. For a moment their eyes met and she saw something rare in him. Not pain, not even guilt. Just recognition. It made her nervous. Not because she didn't understand it, but because she did. "Why are you here, Milo?" she asked quietly now. He didn't answer. Not with words. Instead he stood, walked to the far corner of the room, and pressed a code into the floor panel. It hissed open with a click, revealing a narrow stairwell descending into shadow. He looked back over his shoulder. "Come see." She hesitated only a moment before following. They descended in silence. The steps were narrow, uneven. The air grew warmer as they moved deeper, not colder. At the base was a reinforced hatch, half fused from what looked like a scavenged ship hull. Milo keyed in another sequence. The door hissed open. Inside was not what she expected. Screens, hundreds of them, lined the walls in concentric rings. Each displayed bursts of neural activity, emotive signature readouts, and feedback loops running simulations. A holographic interface hovered at the center, gently pulsing in sync with a soft, harmonic tone. Serene stepped inside, stunned. This is an emotional encoding lab," she breathed. "Prototype," Milo corrected. "Built from blacklisted archives and a bunch of goodwill from people who didn't live long enough to see it finished." She turned to him. "You built this?" "I finished it," he said. "The ones who started it, they died believing emotions weren't flaws." She touched the hologram gently. "We thought we were curing instability." Milo tapped a panel, bringing up a waveform. "You were pruning the tree so hard nothing could grow." There in that blue-lit room beneath a frozen world, two engineers, once enemies by blueprint, stood side by side, finally seeing the same screen. A long beat passed. "Leo doesn't just resonate with me," Milo said at last. "He transmits." Siren looked up. "Broadcast. Not words, not thoughts, states. He's a tuning fork. He vibrates in empathy. But only if he trusts the receiver," Siren whispered. "And he trusts you." Milo's jaw flexed. "That's why they'll come. They feel it." Siren stepped back. Her pulse quickened. "You mean the purge units?" Milo nodded grimly. "Tracking doesn't need GPS when you radiate feeling. They'll lock on him like heat seekers." As if on cue, a low rumble echoed from above. The storm had stopped. But in its place, something else was coming. Something that didn't howl. Something that hummed. And far above, cutting through the stillness, a sharp metallic shriek rippled across the sky. The scream of the drone pulse faded, but it left a pressure behind. Not in the ears deeper. In the ribs. The marrow. Like something old and cold had looked directly at you and decided not to blink. Siren gripped the side railing of the lab's platform, breathing shallow. "They're here." Milo was already at the command console, fingers flying over haptic keys. "I've got about 90 seconds before they triangulate." He flipped a kill switch. The entire room dimmed, screens folding into standby. "They'll read this place like a lighthouse if I don't cloak it." Siren nodded automatically, adrenaline dulling her mind. "We need to move Leo to the subcellar." "No." Milo's tone left no room for debate. "They'll sniff that out first." "He's still sinking," she insisted. "If they interrupt that state, then we lose him." He was already halfway up the stairs. Siren hesitated just long enough to curse herself for not noticing it earlier, the subtle way he moved with military economy. His limp wasn't just from injury, it was calculated. A lie told to delay assumptions. He'd spent years making himself look like someone not worth chasing, and that illusion was now burning. By the time she reached the top, Milo was crouched near the fire, gently lifting Leo into his arms. The boy didn't stir, but his hands twitched like signal flags. Milo looked at them, reading them like language. "Still broadcasting," he muttered. "Still keyed to me?" Siren reached for her son. "Let me help." Milo hesitated, then let her take one of Leo's arms, cradling the child between them, like a shared memory. Outside, snow hissed against the glass in horizontal streaks, but the sky wasn't dark anymore. Faint streaks of blue light danced above the treetops, scanning beams. "They're flying cold," Milo muttered. "No transponder signatures. That's not recon, it's a sweep." "Yeah." He nodded to the rear wall. "Storage room, behind the panel." "Go." Saren moved without question, slipping into the next room and sliding open the wall seam. Inside were crates, thermal fuel, and emergency rations, but beneath them a hatch plate marked with rusted human warning signs, Class 4 biological. "Do not engage." "You kept this?" she asked. Milo, rifle in hand, pressed a code into the floor beside her. The hatch hissed open. "I built it." Beneath the floor was a narrow passage barely wide enough for two. At the end, a single steel chamber lit with flickering red LEDs. "A panic room," Seren asked. "A broadcasting null space. Lead-lined, emotion-dampened, signal-absorbing. Built for ghosts." "You've used it before." Milo's expression was unreadable. "I was the first one who needed it." She laid Leo down inside, tucking the emergency blanket around his small frame. The lights inside the chamber dimmed to amber, then soft blue. Leo's readout synced to a flatline pulse, not dead, but hidden. Seren stepped back. "What about us?" Milo checked the monitor. "They'll breach. We're staying upstairs." She stared at him. "You want to fight them?" "No," he said calmly. "I want to stall them." A pause, then he added, "with a little help from a neural echo generator and one very angry ex-architect." She blinked. "You mean me?" He offered a lopsided smile. "Well, you're no good with a gun." She rolled her eyes and followed him back up. Back in the cabin's main room, Milo crouched by the hearth again, prying up floorboards. From beneath them, he retrieved a compact cube, matte black, humming slightly. "What is that?" "The last piece of a very illegal experiment." Silent mirrors, echo drive. Her stomach turned. Those were unstable, unpredictable, like your kid. He clicked the cube to life. A shimmer ran up the walls, distorting the edges of reality slightly. Let them see what they expect: a cabin, a child, a failure. But what they won't expect? He turned to her fully. Emotion. Seren stepped forward. "You can't program that." "No," he agreed, "but I can simulate it." And with that, he pulled the headset from a drawer, old, scuffed, wrapped in leather. He placed it on Seren's head. "What? Think of the moment you first held him," Milo said. She froze. "Feel it. Anchor to it. Let the system take it." She shook her head. I I can't go back there." "I was different." "Exactly," Milo whispered. "That's the point." A soft click. A hum. The echo drive lit up, and suddenly the room was full of her. Of that memory. Pain and awe and trembling hands. She gasped. And outside, one of the drones stopped. Its scan beam faltered. It shivered. From the tree line, a voice crackled. "Signal anomaly detected. Emotional residue exceeds baseline." Another voice: "Deploy ground units." Milo lifted his rifle. "Here we go." Through the cabin window, she saw them, 7 mechs each one, built for speed and precision. No faces. Just smooth masks where expressions should be. Their limbs moved too smoothly, too silently. Soren whispered, "Those are purge models." "Yup, they're not supposed to feel." Milo nodded. "So let's see what happens when they do." The first drone approached. The echo drive pulsed again, this time with a new memory. Not hers, Milo's. A dimly lit command tent, a hologram of faces, a voice saying, "We deploy the device, but it will cost you Varn." And then in the now, his face, stoic, tired, but lit from within by something raw. The drone's steps slowed, its blade arm twitched, and for a single moment it hesitated. Seren whispered, "It's working." Then the second one screamed, not from a mouth but from its sensors. The kind of scream that meant code was breaking. That emotionless code had met something it couldn't parse. Grief. Milo adjusted the frequency dial. "Let's show them what it means to feel again." The first mech faltered, like a puppet with cut strings jerking backward, as if something had punched it between the optics. It let out a synthetic hiss and collapsed into the snow, spasming once, then going still. Milo didn't smile. Seren almost did. "Did you just give a drone an existential crisis?" she muttered, stepping beside him behind the crude barricade of overturned tables and scrap. Milo adjusted the dial again, more like forcing it to relive its creator's childhood trauma. "The echo drive isn't elegant, it's honest. Is that safe?" He gave her a sideways glance. Emotion never was. Outside, the other mechs paused in formation. Some tilted their heads. One disturbingly began to mimic a breathing rhythm, like it was trying to remember something it never had. Okay, Seren breathed. You got their attention. Now what? Milo crouched near the table, wrenching open a crate of old gear. Inside, something that looked suspiciously like a teddy bear, except wired with nano thread and explosives. Seren raised an eyebrow. That better not be real. He tossed it at her. Just the shell. The payload's already gone. You're holding sentimental camouflage. Literally. She cradled it, blinking. You had emotion sim decoys. Back during Silent Mirror, we were testing empathy traps. Worked better than lasers sometimes. Great, she said dryly. You weaponized childhood. He shrugged. Welcome to humanity. They heard metal on metal as the mechs began to regroup. One of them stepped forward, larger than the others. A commander unit. Its chest opened in segments, revealing a whirring core of needles dampeners and a pulsing neurolight. Seren inhaled sharply. That one's mine. I designed that chassis. Milo's expression didn't change. So give it something it's never had. She looked at the Echo drive. The display was already shifting, warping, waiting for input. I don't know if I can, she whispered. I haven't felt enough. Milo stood, rifle ready. Then borrow something from someone who has. He touched her shoulder. Not gently, not cruelly, steadily. And for a brief second, just long enough to be undeniable, she felt it. A flicker of memory. Rain. A funeral. A hand held in silence. A decision to not fire. And the quiet grief of being the only one left to make peace with choices. It wasn't her memory, it was his. Seren gasped. That's not possible. He tapped his temple. The neural bridge still burns even after all these years. Leo synced because he felt it. Now you can too. They locked eyes. This wasn't romance, not in the storybook way. This was something older, stranger. Two people who had been architects of systems, now forced to feel the ruins they'd left behind. Outside, the commander unit advanced. Milo handed Seren a control stick. You do the upload, he said. She stared. You trust me? He nodded once. No, but he does. He glanced down toward the basement. That stopped her. Her fingers trembled only briefly before steadying. She activated the sequence. The cabin lights dimmed, then surged. The Echo drive expanded its field, pushing the waveform through the walls and into the snow beyond. And then, like a ripple of heat across a frozen lake, it hit the commander. Its joints froze mid-stride. Its head tilted slow, almost painfully. And it spoke. I remember. Its voice was wrong, like a child trying to sing an old song it never knew the lyrics to. Seren swallowed hard. I shouldn't be able to say that. Now it can, Milo said. You built it to obey. But I built this into a question. The commander stumbled forward, then dropped to one knee. Sparks flew from its shoulder. Then terrifyingly, it looked directly at Seren. You? Mother. Her breath caught. Milo lifted his rifle, but she raised a hand. No. Wait. The mech twitched. Emotions. Conflict. Directive. Corrupted. Rewriting. 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 Then its eyes dimmed, and it collapsed gently like a tree falling into snow. All 7 mechs followed. No blast, no explosion. Just stillness. Pure, unfiltered, emotional overload, like a soul too heavy for its body. Milo lowered the rifle. Well, he muttered, that's either genius or a war crime. Seren let out a breath. It became a laugh, thin, ragged, but real. And then from the basement hatch, a soft sound, the ping of sync. Leo was awake. Milo and Seren turned at the same time, racing toward the room. They found him sitting upright, eyes wide but calm. He looked at them, one, then the other, and then he raised a hand. Not just to reach out, but to connect. His fingers curled into a gesture neither of them recognized, until Milo did. He smiled. That's not random. Seren frowned. What is it? Milo's voice was quiet. It's the hand signal for father from my old squad. We used it during nullcoms. Seren's eyes welled. Leo looked at Milo, and though he said nothing, everything was there. A connection, a choice. And somewhere in the collapsing snow outside, a drone still recorded, but couldn't understand what it was seeing. Because how do you classify a war criminal, a failed mother, and a silent child, who together just won with grief? They didn't bury the mechs. Milo simply dragged the hulks into a circle 50 meters from the cabin, shut down their power cores, and left them there, steel corpses staring into the snow-blind horizon like forgotten titans. Seren watched from the doorway, Leo clinging to her sleeve, his eyes tracking Milo's every motion with eerie, silent focus. When Milo returned, his breath misted in hard, shallow bursts. He looked older than before, shoulders slightly more slumped. He didn't complain, didn't speak, just kicked off his boots and lit the fire again, like they were settling in after grocery shopping, not emotional warfare. Seren broke the silence. So? What now? Milo poured 3 mugs of tea, though Leo only sipped warm broth, and handed them out like they were old friends at a kitchen table. He sat. Now we wait. For more, he nodded. That wasn't a recon squad. That was a purge unit, which means command is either scared or confused, or both. Seren sipped carefully. Then why aren't we running? Because the moment we do, Milo said we start playing their game again. Leo, oddly enough, giggled, just once. The kind of soft, nervous giggle a child makes when he sees adults pretending everything is fine. It was the second time since the cabin. Seren couldn't help it. She smiled. Milo noticed. That sound, that's the weapon we need. Seren leaned back. Leo doesn't even understand what's happening. Exactly. He feels it. She raised an eyebrow. That's not a strategy. It's the only one that's worked so far. A beat. Then Milo added, you ever wonder why all the High Council species in the quadrant voted for emotional suppression? Seren answered automatically. Because war was too costly. Emotions triggered conflict patterns. Milo snorted. No, they feared humans. She blinked. That's not documented. Exactly. He stood open a side drawer and pulled out a rusted data pad, blew the dust off, activated it. A flickering image popped up, a grainy security feed from decades ago. A room full of humanoids, aliens, diplomats, and a single human woman standing still while everyone screamed over one another. She didn't raise her voice. She just waited, Milo said. Seren watched as the image played. The shouting ceased. The woman stepped forward, whispered something inaudible. The entire room fell silent. Milo turned the pad off. No threat, no weapons. Just calm. Real, grounded, terrifying calm. That scared the High Councils more than plasma arsenals ever did. Seren folded her arms. What did she say? Milo's gaze darkened. She said, you sterilized emotion to protect yourselves from each other. But what will protect you from something that remembers what it felt like to be afraid? They sat in silence for a long time. Leo wandered to the window. His tiny fingers traced symbols into the condensation loops and spirals, abstract shapes, something between language and thought. Seren moved to pull him away, but Milo stopped her. Let him. That's neural projection training. He's not drawing, he's translating. Into what? Milo tilted his head. Into something even their scanners won't recognize. Emotion close. He stepped beside, Leo knelt. Faith. Seren almost laughed. In what? In us, Milo said, and then he added softer. In the idea that you don't have to be perfect to protect someone. That silenced her. She'd spent so long clinging to guilt, to logic, to the belief that only control could guarantee safety. But Leo wasn't safe because of suppression. He was safe because someone, some imperfect, someone had chosen to care. Leo pressed his forehead to the glass, fogging it up. And then without turning, he whispered, actually whispered, his voice dry and fragile. Not alone anymore. Seren's knees buckled. Milo caught her quietly and didn't say anything. Didn't comment on the tears. He just helped her sit. Leo kept whispering softly at the window, stray words. Names. Descriptions of color that didn't exist. And something strange began to happen in the cabin. The walls vibrated faintly, not shaking, resonating. Seren looked up. He's sinking, with what Milo asked, more intrigued than alarmed. She blinked at her son. Not just you anymore. Leo raised his hand and pointed at the sky. Milo moved to the console. Check the scanners. We're not transmitting. No, Seren said slowly. But he is. Leo turned smiling now, his face lit by something unexplainable. They're listening. Milo's eyes narrowed. Who? And then the cabin's external comms, long thought dead, activated themselves. A voice distorted and distant buzzed into existence. Not a machine, not from Seren's species, but real, listening, a whisper of a whisper. We felt it. Milo stepped back. Who the hell are we? Seren's mouth fell open. Not an enemy, Leo said. Then what Leo's gaze, clear innocence, settled on both of them. Lost, Milo muttered. Oh, that's way worse. The room fell quiet. Not just the room, the planet. Outside, the storm had stopped again. But it wasn't the stillness of peace. It was the stillness of attention. The universe had turned its ear toward this little cabin in the snow. Because something had finally happened that none of their systems could classify. Three broken people. An ex-strategist, a disgraced scientist, and a child built from errors had become louder than war. The silence held. Not an ordinary pause, not like waiting for someone to speak or the wind to pick up again. This silence listened. It pressed against the cabin walls like an ocean waiting for permission to rise. Milo paced. Seren stood perfectly still, one hand on the table, knuckles white. Leo. He just sat cross-legged by the fire, humming something tuneless and soft, like he'd known this moment would come and had already made peace with it. The voice crackled again through the cabin's comm array. No language, just pulses of rhythm, emotion in waveform. Milo instinctively reached for the old translation rig and patched in the auditory relay. Seren whispered, that pattern, it's baseline emotive compression. That's not a species signature. Milo raised an eyebrow. Then what is it? She leaned in, eyes wide. It's a network, something collective, a broadcast made by minds, linked ones. Milo exhaled. You're telling me my cabin just got a call from an alien group chat? Not chat, Seren corrected. Communion. He blinked. Well, he muttered, there goes my quiet weekend. Suddenly, Leo stiffened. He didn't convulse. He didn't cry. He stood, eyes glazed but conscious. He raised one hand, not toward either of them, but toward the echo drive. It flared to life, no switch flipped, no command entered. The pulse widened, humming in frequencies neither human nor alien, but something liminal. Seren's monitor began displaying biometric streams in real time. Milo squinted. That's 7. 7 what? 7 nodes. Active synchronizations. He's linking. Linking with what, not what Seren breathed. Who? Milo turned slowly toward her. You mean he's broadcasting himself across multiple receivers? Seren nodded, stunned. That's why he never connected with us fully. He wasn't built for one-on-one interaction. His brain is network native. Milo frowned. A telepathic router. No, she whispered, a catalyst. The comm array pinged. Then again. Rapid pulses timed like heartbeats. The voices began to coalesce into forms, rough shapes appearing on the screen. Hazy silhouettes, humanoid and not. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Milo narrowed his eyes. Have you ever seen anything like this? No, Seren replied. But I think we created it. The images stabilized. One leaned forward. Its face was an abstract, unreadable patchwork, but the way it looked was undeniable. A child's curiosity in the shape of a star. It spoke. You're the ones who remembered. Milo stepped forward. Remember what the shape shifted gently like fog made sentient. That fear isn't the enemy. That pain is a message. That emotion is not weakness. It's proof of life. The voice wasn't talking to them. It was talking through Leo. The boy's lips moved, but not with his own voice. We watched your species bury itself beneath logic, code, compliance. We waited. Seren swallowed. Who are you? Leo's body tilted slightly. The forgotten, the rejected, the ones whose hearts broke before words did. Milo muttered, poetic for ghosts. No ghosts, the voice replied. Echoes, survivors of emotional extinction, carriers of what was once called soul. A pause. Then we came because the boy called. Seren fell to her knees beside her son. He's just a child. Exactly. That's why we answered. The figures on the screen pulsed in tandem with Leo's breath now. 7 light patterns, 7 minds, 7 truths no longer buried. Milo didn't like it. Are you here to help or to claim him? A long pause. Neither, the voice said. We are here to follow. He leads. Seren shook her head. He's not ready. Then you walk beside him, the voice answered. Outside, the snow began to fall again, but gently now, like ashes after a fire. Then one final message blinked onto the screen. They know. More are coming. The signal cut. Milo stared at the blank screen for a long moment, then turned to Seren. We have maybe 12 hours before another sweep. You know what that means? She nodded. We build. He gestured toward the basement. The synchronization node is live. We boost it. And the shielding. He glanced up at the solar panels still mostly iced over. I'll melt what I can. You'll run defense protocols. Seren's face hardened. We do this together. He looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time since the storm. Yeah, we do. And then from the far corner, Leo spoke in his own voice. Just 2 words. Soft. Hopeful. Stay here. They turned. He smiled at them both. You stay. Milo smiled. Yeah, kid, we stay. The snow kept falling, but now it wasn't a threat. It was a blank page. By sunrise, the cabin looked like it had grown teeth. From the outside, it still appeared weather-worn, half-buried under Borealis 6's eternal snowdrift. But tucked beneath the porch, along the roofline and embedded behind stacked crates of old equipment, Milo's quiet paranoia had taken shape: sensor drones, EM bouncers, reflective shields, and hidden below it all, a neuro-reactive perimeter designed not to keep enemies out, but to confuse their reason for coming in. Inside, the 3 of them worked like they'd done it before. Milo set the rhythm, his hands always busy. Wires twisted, tools sparked, pulse cores wind into place. Seren handled the interface systems, patching ancient human code into alien biologic, reverse engineering the emotional filtration grid she once helped deploy. Leo simply sat. He sat at the center of it all, quietly drawing on the cabin floor with a piece of burned graphite. Spirals, not childish spirals, precise ones, measured, repeating, geometric echoes of the waveform pulses that still thrummed gently in the basement echo drive. Each one matched the sync pattern of a linked consciousness from the network. Kid's better than our best linguists, Milo murmured, nodding at the symbols. And he's 5, 6, Seren corrected. He turned 6 during the blackout month. Milo paused. You didn't celebrate it. I didn't know how. He looked at her, not in judgment, but something softer. You can still start. A beat passed. Then tentatively, he added, humans bake cake, or burn it. Depends. Seren laughed, a quiet, uncertain sound, but genuine. We used to imprint memory threads, a kind of synesthetic download. You'd share one good feeling with the child, and they'd carry it forever. Milo grinned. We have that too. We call it trauma. She snorted. You're insufferable, and you're warming up. They smiled at each other. Not romance, not yet, but something quietly aligning. Outside, one of the aerial sensors pinged. Seren stiffened. Milo moved first, checking the visual overlay. Not drones. This is organic. She frowned. You mean alive? Not from your people. Not from mine. He tapped a command into the console. A shimmering outline appeared on the holopad, tall, spindly figures with elongated skulls and bioreactive armor. Seren's eyes widened. No, those are Vashatel, border world observers. They haven't been seen since the Concordance collapse. They heard the signal, Milo said. They're here. For us, for him. Leo didn't look up from his drawing, but he pressed his hand flat against the floor like he felt them arriving. They're not enemies, he murmured, but they're afraid. Milo frowned. Of us, Leo shook his head. Of change. A soft thump at the door. Milo grabbed his rifle. No, Leo said. Milo hesitated. Another thump, then a low hum like a living thing trying to ask before it entered. Seren whispered, It's emotional. The hum became a tone. The same resonance Leo had broadcast 2 days prior, but mirrored, adjusted. A handshake. Milo stepped forward and opened the door a crack. Snow blew in brief biting. Then he saw them. 3 Vashtel, not armed, kneeling in the snow, hands out, palms glowing faintly in synchrony. The lead one looked up, eyes bright, not hostile. We heard the resonance, it said in accented standard. We have come to remember. Milo stepped aside. They entered slowly, reverently, like pilgrims. They didn't look at Milo or Seren, only Leo. He stood calmly. I walked up to the lead one and touched its palm. A pulse traveled between them, no sparks, no light. Just emotion. Milo could feel it in his bones. Regret, wonder, loss, and the quiet awe of something long feared being real. Seren whispered, they're linking with him. Can he handle that? He already is. Leo turned, looking at Milo and Seren. I'm not alone, he said. So, neither are they. The Vashtel leader bowed slightly. This child has opened an echo nexus, the first in many orbits. Milo squinted. Define echo nexus. The alien gestured to the cabin. This place, him, you, a convergence point, where unprocessed grief becomes language, where fractured minds synchronize through feeling, not speech. Seren blinked, like a nervous system. For souls. Milo deadpanned. You're saying we accidentally built a church? The Vashtel smiled. We call it a sanctuary. Seren turned to Milo, wide-eyed. This changes everything. Yeah, he murmured, then smiled. But I'm still not making a cake. Leo giggled. The Vashtel chuckled, strange harmonic, like wind through glass. And in that laughter, 3 species stood under one roof, feeling the same warmth for once. It wasn't a military victory. It wasn't a scientific breakthrough. It was the most dangerous thing the galaxy had forgotten: connection. The second wave didn't knock. It just arrived. Not with sirens, not with warning shots, just the soft crunch of a mech's footstep outside the cabin. A sound so precise it sounded polite, as if the machines were asking for conflict this time. Inside, Milo felt it before the sensors picked it up. A low tension in his spine, the kind of anticipation born from years of ambushes and survival odds, calculated in percentages under 10. Brace, he said, already reaching for the old sidearm hidden behind the stove. Seren snapped her eyes up from the terminal. They didn't ping the grid. They're not interested in signals, Milo growled. They're hunting the source. The Vashatel reacted instantly. The leader, Orev, stepped in front of Leo, glowing palms up, a bioluminescent halo flickering around his wrists. They come without emotion, he murmured. That makes them unstable. Milo peeked through a side slat. 5 of them. Newer models, sleeker. Damn, these are Phase 7 units. Seren's breath caught. Those weren't approved for deployment. Welcome to off-book war. Leo stood perfectly still. He wasn't scared. He was listening. Seren crouched beside him. Leo, can you feel them? He nodded. Hollow. Hollow how? No roots. Just echo shells. They don't feel, Milo muttered. Then they're perfect soldiers. No, Leo said firmly. They're broken receivers. Before either adult could respond, the lead mech stepped into full view. Its frame shimmered optics, spinning slowly, head tilted at an angle that mimicked the curiosity. It didn't speak. It just raised an arm. And the cabin shook. A concussive pulse burst through the perimeter shield, silent but heavy. Seren staggered. Orev winced, his glow flickering out. Milo didn't stagger. He grinned. You idiots brought logic to an emotional fight. He slammed the echo drive into override. The pulse emitted wasn't visual. It wasn't sonic. It was remembered. Memories. Hundreds of them. Poured from Milo's head into the drive, which broadcasted them in pulse-form childhood grief. Battlefield guilt, the soft thrum of warmth during one winter sunrise with a lost friend. The nearest mech jerked hard, then twitched. Its left arm retracted, and it fell backward. Direct hit, Milo muttered. That was my high school breakup. Seren activated the neural crosslinker. Uploading my first failure, she said grimly. The day I authorized Leo's mod. 2 more mechs flinched just slightly, but enough to betray hesitation. They're not rejecting input, she gasped. They're trying to understand it. Milo's voice hardened. Good. Let's overwhelm them. But before he could boost the drive, Leo stepped forward. Everyone froze. He walked slow, deliberate, straight to the cabin door. Kid Milo barked, but Leo didn't stop. He opened it. The wind had died completely. The 5 mechs stood in formation. Only one raised its head when the door creaked. And Leo walked outside, barefoot, 6 years old, unarmed. Milo swore and moved to follow, but Orev held him back. Let him. Like hell I will. He is the echo. Let him resonate. Seren stood beside Milo. He's not crazy. He's sinking. Outside, Leo raised both hands. No words, no weapons. The mechs stepped forward in sync, but they didn't attack. Instead, one by one, they mirrored his movement. Milo whispered, "What's he doing?" Seren's voice trembled. "He's transmitting a live pattern, uncompressed, raw emotion, as it's being felt." A moment passed, and then Leo cried. Just a single tear. The mechs froze, all 5 simultaneously. Milo blinked. "What, they've never seen grief before," Seren whispered. "Only data, never in real time." And then the impossible. The lead mech dropped to one knee. The others followed. Milo nearly dropped his rifle. "Are they—" Bowing, Leo turned finally and said softly, "They remember now." Behind him, the mechs powered down. Not crashed, not disabled, voluntarily dormant. One by one, their eyes dimmed. Seren stepped outside, barely breathing. They chose to shut down. Orev whispered, "No." They chose not to kill. Milo stepped beside them. They surrendered. To a kid. To humanity, Orev said. The part that survived your own extinction. Seren knelt beside Leo, who was blinking slowly, now drained. He leaned into her and whispered something. "What did he say?" Milo asked gently. Seren smiled through tears. He said, "They weren't evil, just lonely." Milo looked at the silent machines and whispered, "Same." The cabin was quiet again. Not the tense kind of quiet that waits for the next impact, but a warm one. Like the sound after laughter. Like a fire still crackling in the corner of a room where no one wants to leave just yet. The 5 mechs sat outside in the snow, positioned in a semicircle around Leo's graphite spiral. Their optics dimmed. Their weapons were retracted. Not shut down, just still. Contemplative in a way machines weren't supposed to be. Inside, Milo stirred the soup. He was humming something, a tune no one recognized, probably half invented. Every few bars, he stopped to stare out the window and mutter something like, "If you told me I'd be making stew while pacifying murder robots through childhood trauma, I'd have invested in better seasoning." Seren, meanwhile, sat beside Leo on the cabin floor. She was brushing his hair with her fingers, slowly, rhythmically. Not to fix it, just to feel it. He leaned against her, eyes half closed. "I don't feel tired," he murmured, "but my head is sleeping." She smiled. "That means you're safe." He blinked up at her. "Is that what this is?" Seren blinked, caught off guard. "What this?" He gestured loosely. "A family." She didn't answer right away. Milo did. "Yeah, kid, it is." Leo smiled sleepily. "That's weird." Milo raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "Because we didn't start with love." Seren chuckled. "Families don't always start with love. Leo, sometimes they start with a blizzard, a rifle, and a man who doesn't smile." "I smile," Milo said, mock offended. "Rarely and badly." "Fair." She looked at him softly now, and something shifted. For a moment, they weren't engineers and strategists, not war criminal and war scarred, just 2 tired people who'd finally stopped running long enough to look. Leo sighed. "I think I want to stay here. Always." Milo stirred the soup again. "You might just get that wish." But then beep. The console chimed. Not an alert. Not a threat. A message. Milo stepped over, brows furrowed. Seren followed. The message unfolded in a cascading waveform, emotional resonance turned into script. 7 pulses, then 13, then hundreds. Seren gasped. "They're sinking? With Leo with us?" Orev approached, eyes glowing faintly. "The echo nexus has reached critical amplitude." Milo turned to him, meaning Orev inclined his head. "Meaning it's no longer just here." Seren stared. "What do you mean?" Orev gestured to the cabin walls. "This place, it's become a node, a broadcast point. The emotional signal, it's cascading." Milo nodded slowly. Other beings are tuning in. Orev smiled. Not just beings. Systems. Ones that forgot how to feel. They're listening. On the console, names began appearing strings of identifiers, coordinates, and emotional states tagged like metadata. Vorg cluster, confused but listening. Kellen Thar, lattice grieving. Open to receive, human outpost, EOS 7 awake. Siren's breath caught. That's one of ours. It was locked down. No transmission for years. Milo blinked. And now it's responding. The implications hit all three of them at once. This isn't just healing, Leo Siren whispered. This is healing everything. The great silencing Orev murmured was never permanent. Just buried. Leo stirred from the rug, yawning. He looked at the console, then up at the adults. Why are you crying? Siren wiped her cheek. Because people are starting to feel again. That's good, right? She laughed. Yes, it's very good. Leo looked thoughtful. Can I draw them all? Milo ruffled his hair. Only if you include the guy who made terrible soup and carried you through a blizzard. That was you. Exactly. Outside, the sky shimmered. Not with sunlight. Borealis 6 didn't have much of that. But something was pushing back the snow clouds. A glow faint and shifting. Aurora-like but woven with patterns. Siren squinted. Those aren't just lights. They're responses, Orev said. Visual feedback from receivers with no language. Emotion as color. Milo muttered, if we keep going at this rate, the galaxy's going to need therapy. Orev chuckled. Or maybe just permission. The message stream kept growing. So many minds all reaching out. Not for data, not for commands, but for connection. And at the center of it all, a boy, with no words, a woman haunted by the system she once built, and a man who thought he'd died long before the snow found him. Milo leaned against the doorframe. Want to know the funny part, he said. Siren looked at him. What I didn't save you two out of kindness. She raised an eyebrow. I did it because it felt like something I'd regret not doing. She smirked. That's called kindness. He tilted his head. Nah, that's just a memory with sharper teeth. Leo yawned again. Are you guys going to kiss now? Both adults froze. Orev made a noise suspiciously close to a snort. Siren smiled faintly. Maybe later. Milo nodded. After soup. When the third assault came, it didn't arrive with machines. It arrived with doubt. Not in the form of a voice or weapon, but a single comm burst encrypted, immediate, and unmistakably human. Milo froze mid-step. The message blinked across the cabin's console. Operation Null Ember activation confirmed. Units en route. Siren read it aloud, disbelief tightening her jaw. That's Earth code. Tier 1 clearance. Milo said nothing for a long moment. Then it means they're sending in a failsafe. Orev stepped forward, his bioluminescent pulse flaring faintly. Failsafe for what? For people like me, Milo muttered. People who survived Silent Mirror. People who were never supposed to use the technology again. Siren shook her head. You didn't use it. You became it. Try explaining that to a satellite council that still thinks feelings are a biochemical liability. Leo looked up from his corner, confused. Are they the bad guys? No, Milo said. They're the scared guys. And scared people shoot first. A new blip appeared on the map, high altitude, descending fast. Not a drone, not a pod. A person. Siren's breath caught. They sent a vanguard, of course, Milo muttered. They'd never trust a machine with something this delicate. Orev's brow ridges furrowed. You recognize the signal? I recognize the signature. That's call sign Enyo. Siren's eyes widened. You mean Lana Enyo from the original neuroinversion trials? Milo gave a grim nod. My old team lead, and she's coming here to finish what I didn't. The cabin fell quiet. Even Leo stopped drawing. Outside, the sky cracked not from weather but velocity. A sharp sonic thump shook the beams. She's here, Milo said, already pulling on his coat. And she doesn't knock. Siren grabbed his arm. What do we do? He looked down at her, then at Leo, who stood now with his hands clenched, his emotional signal thrumming through the floorboards. We don't fight her, Milo said. We show her. They stepped outside together, three silhouettes in the snow. Orev stayed behind, shielding Leo inside the cabin's sink field. The air shimmered with tension. From the tree line, a figure approached, not fast, not stealthy, just deliberate. Clad in dark adaptive armor, helmet down, hands, free of weapons, but her very presence radiated containment. Control. Lana Enyo. Milo, she called out. Still dragging ghosts through winter, Milo smiled bitterly. Figured I'd try something different. Like not dying alone. She stopped 10 feet away. Her visor retracted, revealing sharp blue eyes and an expression that read equal parts fondness and mission critical. You're broadcasting unauthorized neural overlays, she said. That's a violation of at least 7 galactic sanction codes. Sounds about right. You've linked with non-regulated species. He glanced at Seren. We share snacks now, and you've constructed an echo field without oversight. Built one by accident, he said. Maintained it on purpose. She took a breath. You know what my orders are? He nodded. You always followed them. But she prompted. I'm hoping you'll remember what we felt back then, before we wrote it out ourselves. Her jaw tightened. That feeling got people killed. Suppressing it got more killed. She stepped forward. Seren tensed, but Milo held up a hand. Lana, he said softly, there's a child in that cabin. A real one. Not a weapon, not a node. Just a little boy who managed to do what 27 interstellar think tanks failed to do. Her eyes narrowed. Witches make people care. Lana glanced past him toward the soft pulse light filtering through the cabin slats. They're sinking across quadrant lines. That's unstable. It's a connection, Seren said, stepping up. Maybe instability is how we grow. A long pause. Then Lana's voice softened. I heard the broadcast, and I remembered my sister's voice. Milo blinked. She died before the implants, before I got promoted. I hadn't heard her laugh in years. But when the signal came in, it was like it surfaced from me. Seren whispered. Then you're already part of it. Lana looked down. Then she laughed. A short, bitter sound. This wasn't supposed to work. No, Milo agreed, but it did. So what now? He smiled. You come in, you have soup, and maybe you let yourself remember. She stared at him for a long time, then holstered her weapon. I hate soup. Milo chuckled. Yeah, that never changed. They turned back toward the cabin, 3 former soldiers of a war on emotion, now walking toward a child who didn't know what hate felt like. And in the snow, the synced mechs raised their heads slowly, as if even they could feel the tide turning. The cabin door creaked open once more. This time no storm, no guns. Just Lana Enyo boots still dusted with snow visor retracted, and years of control slowly draining from her posture like frost melting under warmth she didn't know she'd missed. Leo looked up from the rug where he'd been stacking scrap pieces into a spiraled sculpture. He paused, stared at her expression unreadable, and then without a word offered her a bent copper bolt. She blinked. Milo grinned. That means he likes you. Lana took the bolt carefully, as if it might explode. He's the signal, he is the signal, Seren said gently, but not the source. More like the amplifier. Lana nodded slowly, eyes scanning the walls. The consoles, the soft, pulsing hum of the echo drive in the basement. I remember when we tried to do this, she murmured. Back during Phase 4, we thought if we could isolate the right frequency of loss, we could simulate empathy. Seren frowned. Simulate. Yeah. Run it like code. Feed it to soldiers before deployment. Give them a ghost to fight for. And it broke them, Lana said, sitting down heavily at the old kitchen bench. Not physically, but inside. They didn't die in battle. They left it. Stopped obeying. Stopped firing. Some started hugging enemies. Some just cried until their implants burned out. Milo leaned on the doorway. So the council blamed emotion itself. They didn't understand it. Still don't. Lana looked up. But this, she nodded toward Leo. This feels different. Because it's not curated, Milo said. It's not engineered. It's just true. Lana stared at the child. Leo smiled. And in that moment, something shifted in her. Her fingers loosened. Her armor unsealed at the collar. Her breath changed slower. More human. I haven't felt anything like this since before I joined Null Ember. she admitted. Seren stepped forward. So stay. Lana shook her head. You don't understand. My signal is still live. If the council gets spooked, they'll drop a sterilization protocol from orbit. Turn this place into a clean slate. Milo grimaced. Fail safe. They won't ask. They'll assume. A long silence followed. Then Orev stepped forward from the shadows. We can shield this place. Lana blinked. The Vashatel don't interfere in local conflicts. We do now, Orev said simply, because we felt something. And once you feel it, pretending not to is exhausting. Lana exhaled. So what you're offering diplomacy? No, Orev replied. We're offering protection. Seren stepped to the terminal. If we sync the field with the Nexus harmonics, we can override council detection. Mask the signal as solar interference. Will that hold, Lana asked. Milo gave a lopsided smile, long enough to make them curious instead of scared. Curious, Lana muttered. That's dangerous, exactly, Milo said, because curiosity means hesitation, and hesitation is where change happens. Leo stood up and walked over to Lana, then placed his hand on her forearm, where the neural regulator still blinked softly under the skin. It stopped. The light dimmed, then pulsed to match the cabin's heartbeat. Sync complete. Lana stared at it. What did he invited you in, Seren said. Milo added, you don't have to fight anymore. Lana sat back. I don't know if I can stop. Then don't, Milo said. Just shift. Orev extended a data pad. On it, dozens of synchronized echo points began to blossom, nodes appearing across star systems, each one tiny but growing. From mining outposts to forgotten colonies, from abandoned research stations to refugee ships. This isn't an anomaly, he said. It's a movement. Lana stared, and for the first time in years she smiled, not the calculated smile of a soldier, but the unguarded one of someone who remembered a joke from childhood. Then she stood. Okay, she said, let's build something the council can't ignore. That night the cabin turned golden. Not literally, though. Milo did rig some old lanterns with warm-tone filters, but in spirit, in tone, in breath. The walls no longer hummed in fear, but in intention. Seren and Lana worked on the sync stabilizer. Orev transmitted contact frequencies to ancient Vashtel satellites. Milo fixed the roof without swearing too much. And Leo, he drew new spirals, wider now, deeper. He placed one drawing into the center of the floor and whispered to it, "This is where it starts." Seren crouched beside him. What as he looked up? The place where lost people find each other. And outside, far above Borealis 6, hidden behind quantum fog and bureaucratic blind spots, the stars began to flicker back. Not with warships, but with listeners. Milo awoke before dawn. Not from nightmares, those had mostly quieted, but from a sound he hadn't heard in years. Laughter. Not loud, not chaotic, just real. Gently rolling through the cabin like heat from the fire. He followed the sound down the hall. Lana and Seren were huddled around the crude kitchen bench, watching Leo demonstrate his latest invention, a pile of scrap that appeared to be equal parts communicator toy and musical instrument. It whistled when he squeezed the handle, lit up when he blinked at it, and somehow inexplicably smelled faintly of cinnamon. It doesn't do anything, Lana said, still chuckling. It doesn't have to, Seren replied. It just makes him happy. Leo beamed, and Milo smiled, leaning silently against the doorframe. It had taken so long for this place to feel like anything other than a hideout. But now it was home. A strange one, a broken one, but a home nonetheless. He walked into the room. Is that my last diagnostic coil? Leo nodded proudly. Now it sings. Milo sighed. Of course it does. The group shared a look, not one of wariness or fear, but of quiet understanding. They had something now, and that meant it had to be protected. Seren turned to him. Today's the day. He nodded. We either cloak this thing for good or get noticed in a very permanent way. Lana tapped her terminal. Council's still listening, but they're not acting. They're stalling, Milo said. We're not a target anymore. We're a variable, which makes them nervous, Lana added. Orev emerged from the cabin's back chamber, the bioluminescence on his hands pulsing in clear rhythm. We've aligned 9 more nodes overnight. The sync field is nearing critical depth. Seren turned to Milo. It's time. He moved to the echo drive, its smooth casing vibrating faintly. His hand hovered over the interface, hesitant for once. What if it's too much, he asked quietly. Lana stepped forward. Then we feel it together. He smiled. Good answer. He keyed in the final activation sequence. The drive pulsed once, then held steady. For a few seconds, nothing. Then the cabin shifted. Not physically, not visibly, but something under the floor and the walls and the air aligned. The fire sparked blue for a moment. Leo's curls stood on end. Seren gasped. And then outside across Borealis 6, the snow stopped falling. Everywhere. The wind paused, and above them a ring of light formed in the upper atmosphere. A halo almost. Soft. Warm. Like an invitation. Milo blinked. Well, that's new. Seren scanned the sync field. The signal's gone quantum. You mean we're no longer broadcasting impulses, she said. We've become ambient. Lana added passive emotional resonance, like a planet-wide nervous system. Leo whispered, they'll feel us now, even if we're quiet. Orev nodded, and they'll choose, just like we did. Milo took a deep breath, and then the first message arrived. Not from the council, not from another outpost, but from Earth, a private channel, encrypted, buried under old silent mirror protocols. He opened it. A woman appeared on screen. Gray hair, tired eyes, a soft smile. Hello, Milo, she said. He blinked. Mother. She chuckled. Took you long enough to open the door. Lana leaned in. That's Admiral Varn. Milo nodded, stunned. She disappeared during the collapse. Not disappeared, she replied. We left, voluntarily, to preserve the last traces of unsuppressed memory. You knew we hoped that one day someone like you, someone wounded but willing, would open a space like this. She looked past the camera, eyes shimmering. We're ready. Just tell us where. Milo stared at the screen, then at the others. Then at Leo, who now stood beside him. The boy placed his hand over Milo's, and the words formed naturally. Here, Milo said. We start here. By nightfall, the cabin's perimeter had expanded, not physically, but through the signal. Across the stars, people began gathering not in ships, but in thoughts. In intention. From war-torn colonies, from silenced academies, from the fringe and the forgotten. They remembered. Because one child reached for someone who didn't share his DNA. Because one man decided that regret was too cold a place to die in. Because one woman stopped hiding behind what she built and started fixing it. And because 3 strangers by blood, by past, by species chose each other. In the end, that was enough. The last day of winter came not with sunlight, but with silence. Not dead silence. Not the kind you fear. The kind that settles into a home when the fire is low, the dishes are clean, and the people inside finally stop bracing for catastrophe. Milo stood on the porch of the cabin, his arms crossed the frost, catching in his beard like a reluctant goodbye. He stared at the sky, watching the aurora shimmer with faint spirals identical to Leo's sketches, now echoing in the atmosphere, like scars turned into art. Behind him, the cabin buzzed softly, not from alarms or weapons, but from life. Lana was teaching Leo to solder. Seren was decoding a burst transmission from a mining colony that had reactivated an empathy loop dormant for 40 years. Orev stood watch at the sync console, as he always did, half sentinel, half priest of a faith rediscovered. But Milo, he watched, he waited, and then he smiled. A ship landed softly at the clearing's edge. Not sleek, not military. Personal, it hissed open. A group emerged, 4, maybe 5 shapes. Cold, cautious, unsure. The first step forward, a woman, pale, thin, tired, but her eyes were wet. She met Milo's gaze and said quietly, "We came to feel." He nodded. "Then you're already halfway there." She stepped closer, blinking at the cabin like a child seeing warmth for the first time. "Is it always like this?" she asked. "No," he said. "Sometimes it's worse, but sometimes it's better." She looked down. "Do we have to pass a test?" Milo chuckled. "Only one." "What's that?" He opened the cabin door, and Leo looked up from his drawing. He smiled. The woman covered her mouth with her hand, and Milo whispered, "Let yourself belong." She stepped inside. Later that evening, the snow returned. Not a blizzard, not an assault, just a soft fall, like feathers tumbling from a story long finished. Inside the cabin, laughter mingled with silence. Food was shared, stories told. Some cried, no one apologized. Seren stood beside Milo by the hearth, watching Leo crawl into Lana's lap with a book he couldn't yet read. "I was wrong," Seren whispered. "About what? About emotion? About control? About what he needed?" Milo didn't answer. Instead, he took her hand. Not romantic, not possessive, just present. And she didn't let go. Not this time. The fire popped. Leo turned to them and said, "We should build another room." Milo smirked, planning ahead. "There'll be more." He looked up at the adults. "There's always more." Outside, the stars of Borealis 6 continued to turn slowly across the black. The snow didn't stick this time. It melted gently into the ground, seeping into the roots of trees that had long since adapted to sleep through pain. Everything around the cabin moved in a quiet rhythm, no longer reacting to war or orders or guilt, but feeling. Milo sat on the steps. The others were inside now, talking softly. He could hear their voices, low, warm, carrying the tone of people who knew they were no longer alone. He ran his fingers over the rifle beside him. It was clean, functional, but unnecessary. He set it down beside the bench and didn't look back. From the corner of his eye, Leo appeared. He didn't say anything, just sat beside him and leaned his head on Milo's shoulder. They watched the sky together. The stars blinked, some old, some new, some listening, some are still afraid. That was okay. Not everyone had to believe at once. You just needed a few. A mother, a child, a man who thought he'd lost everything. And one moment of choosing each other, no blood required, no test passed, just presence. And from that fragile beginning, a refuge, a signal, a future. You see, we spend so long surviving that we forget what it feels like to be seen, to be heard, to be held. And sometimes it takes the coldest places in the galaxy to remind us that we were never meant to endure this alone.